Hey everybody, welcome in for this episode of New England Road Talk. My name is Conrad Leger from Environmental Partners, and I'm joined today by Bobby Betsold of All States Material Group and rt.baker of Indus, and our special guest, Marc Valenti, the Manager of Operations for the Town of Lexington. Thanks for joining us, Marc.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we have today we're going to hit winter road maintenance, because we know all of our listeners right now are either preparing for winter or are right in the thick of it. So just kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about what you do and for the Town of Lexington, and give folks an understanding of your background.
Sure. Thanks, Conrad. So I've been in Lexington just about 12 years. Started here as the highway superintendent, and going on my 4th year with being the manager of operations. Manager of operations responsibilities here, basically in between the superintendents, and the director of public works. I work side by side with the town engineer, which everybody knows, John Livesey. So John and I kind of report directly to Dave Pinsno, the director. I have a highway superintendent, water and sewer superintendent, public ground superintendent, and a environmental services superintendent under my supervision. And then all the trades are underneath them. So probably at a staff of about 50 or so, somewhere around there. And then we have some operations staff. And prior to that, I was in the heavy civil business working with Artie a long time ago. But yeah, so my concentration in the heavy civil was utilities, mass excavation, soils management, road construction, concrete, you name it. So spent a couple of years in the big dig, left, went back to the big dig. So sewer tunnel experience, a little bit of everything. So it's all good.
Awesome. So in regards to winter maintenance, what do you handle for the town overall?
So it falls under my purview. The highway superintendent is the primary supervisor for that operation. But when I started here in 2010, made a point to build it up into a program that is where it is today. So still, I'm trying to kind of remove myself from it, but we just have a new highway superintendent start. So trying to bring them up to speed with what's happening. But for here, we have about 260 lane miles of road that we plow. We have 9 school parking lots. We have 3 municipal lots. We have about 70 miles of sidewalk that we're also responsible for plowing as well. We have contracted services. We have 3 separate contracts that we publicly bid every 2 to 3 years for those contracted services. We've come to the realization that the public bidding routine for contracted services of snow plowing is a way for us to best achieve this level of service that we're looking for. We don't, we do have to pay market value for the services, but it definitely gives us a better performance. We are very heavily involved in winter liquids here. We're very heavily involved in chloride reduction. We're very heavily involved in research and development here too, with different types of snow ops that are happening. And I'm been sitting on the APWA winter maintenance subcommittee going on, I believe, 7 years. So we have a good group of people, 25, 30 people from around the country that we get together a couple of times a year, and we collaborate on what we can do to make things better. And we put on some supervisor certificate programs and operator certificate programs for APWA as well. So that's been good. And I think a couple of you guys have been to the NBM Highway Association winter seminar that we've had a couple of years as well. That was also a crowd pleaser too. And we're just try to take pride in bringing education and knowledge to the people that are looking for it this year. So a lot of the younger generation is definitely looking for that, and there's plenty of people around to help convey that information to them.
Marc, were you involved in Lexington when at some point they must have converted from sand over to the salts and liquids? Were you involved in that process specifically there in Lexington?
I was not.
You were not.
I came here in May of 2010. I'm pretty sure it was actually a couple of years prior to that, but there was a sand salt blend. I think they were using up through maybe 2005 or 2006, and then they went to straight salt. And they were using a lot of salt.
Mark, in a typical year, when do you guys start prepping for the winter? And we obviously, we're all more on the paving side, and you know, we see the construction in the summer season, but you know, when are you guys kind of kicking off your prep for the winter?
We are prepping for winter in probably June. So we basically close out the season. We have a debrief as to what's going on, what happened, pluses, minuses. And, you know, June, we're closing out the books. We're taking a look at what we may want to do for July 1st. And our staff probably starts picking up the maintenance side of things and starting to go through the winter gear probably in July, August. Yeah.
So what do obviously that's a reoccurring theme every year. It's unlike for us, you know, we're concentrated in June and July on paving and construction and things like that. And obviously you probably have portions of that in your duties as well. But you know, what are you guys doing right now? I mean, obviously we're starting to get in the beginning of the season. I'm sure you've had a couple events where you've had to treat already. What does the season look like at this point?
Right now, it's funny. I actually ran the numbers. We've already gone through 78,000 gallons of blended salt brine so far this season. That's been a series of 5 applications. We've also gone through about 400 tons of salt already for the season as well. We had that the freezing rain event. So we're basically in the mode of, okay, we're always planning and prepping for the next event. Take, for example, they're looking at something on Friday. Sometimes it takes a couple of days. We just got to make sure we got staff going through the gear, making sure that, you know, whether they're missing a bolt here or bolt there, the plow edges, we're looking at, you know, just making sure windshield, like just, it's funny, but like simple things, windshield wipers, making sure their fluids are up, making sure the heat works in the trucks. Like you'd be surprised as to how many heat cores just go, you know, like when they start the truck up that shift, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, it goes south after that. But yeah, like we actually, I saw the truck going out earlier today. We grab a couple of tons of hot mix in our hot box. We are doing pothole patching right now, and we're getting everything ready because, you know, that goes in line with kind of what you guys do. And for us, we actually like having the roads in good shape because it's actually easier for us to remove the snow from the roads if the road is in good shape. You don't want to plow a road that's riddled with potholes because you're never going to get everything off the pavement, you know. So it's a rough ride. It's a disaster for the snow and ice side of things because you always got little tiny crevices for stuff to build up, snow, ice, what have you. Like that's where we kind of enjoy having a great pavement program here in Lexington because we get spoiled in the wintertime. You know, and Artie knows everything that we do here, but you know, we send out a list to town residents, and we have a map and it shows what, okay, we're doing crack sealing, fog sealing, micro overlay, mill and overlay, cape seal, full depth, whatever. Like we give people that information and we give that to them every year, so they're educated on what's happening. But you know, it helps us though in the long run.
Along those lines, Mark, with all those different treatments that you do in Lexington, what are you using for cutting edges? And do you have any experience with some, you know, cutting edges working better than others on some of these surface treatments?
Yeah, good question. So going back to the first time that we did micro, and I'm pretty sure that I think we might be like 4 seasons. You know, there was a big discussion about just pavement preservation. So I think we're upwards around, I don't know, 800,000 bucks a year or something in pavement preservation in general. So for us, we want to preserve that capital investment. So what we started looking at is, what do we need to do to make sure that we keep that capital investment secure and keep it safe once we do it? And we didn't know what was going to happen, but from my perspective, steel cutting edges and carbide cutting edges especially are very, very, very abrasive and can definitely destroy your pavement if you don't have the right attack angle on the plow, and it can just literally peel and rip. And that's what carbide is made for, that, you know, and you do get great peeling power. But for us, we said, okay, well, we started doing some micro, and we found some composite plow blade technology that's a combination of vulcanized rubber, carbide, and, you know, high grade steel. And that combination actually has been able to keep us with a high level of service, keeping the pavement in good shape, and not destroying all of the pavement preservation that we're investing in every year from now on. We have three different plow blades that we're three different cutting edges that we're using. We have vulcanized rubber with, you know, the ceramic spheres in there to help with the wear. And that's like a squeegee. That's for when you got high iron, you got a lot of potholes and so on and so forth. You got the carbide with the vulcanized rubber, and then we still have a couple of regular steel edges. And then the other stuff that's out there though too, there's also some real flexible edges. It really, we do see better performance with any of those adaptive plow edges that are out there nowadays. It's definitely less destructive to the environment. It's going to extend the life of your pavement. It's also going to enhance getting that thin layer off of the pavement. You get as much snow off of the pavement, there's less salt that you got to put on the pavement post treatment. That is a benefit across the board. Of course, everybody knows there's that huge discussion with chloride reduction these days. But we have micros that are on 4 seasons. It's, you know, we're still doing fine. We're not peeling anything up. And, you know, we've also been working with some of the manufacturers and trying out new plow edge technology that isn't on the market yet. We got 2 blades right now that we have in the fleet that one of them is from last season. It's still going. Like this new composite technology, you're talking 2, 3, sometimes we got 3.5 seasons on one blade and we haven't changed it yet. Like that's the other thing about the composite blade technology that people don't understand. You spend a lot of money. Again, it's like pavement preservation. You spend money up front one year, but it pays for years after. It's all this. It's the same theory.
Yeah, so you're definitely seeing the cost benefit from going with those more expensive blades, not only in how long those blades are lasting, but also in the being able to preserve the roadways as well.
Absolutely, and on top of that, Conrad, we're taking the snow off the road. We're getting more snow off the road because it's not one big edge. Some of them are in 1 foot increments. Some are in 3 foot, 4 foot increments. It's easier on the employees' backs if we do need to change it, because now you're talking about small pieces instead of one big 11 foot, 12 foot piece. There's a myriad of benefits to it. You just have to swallow that initial capital expense and then it starts paying, but it doesn't pay right away. It pays as the years go on.
I mean, I'm probably thinking the same thing as some of the listeners are, but what are you talking about in a cost difference between a standard blade and the types of blades? Like, are you talking, you know, double the price, 3 times the price? What are we looking at here?
You're talking at probably, you know, 2.5 times the price to 3 times the price, depending on which one you want. But what people don't understand is if you're using a conventional steel blade, you might be going through, and Artie knows this from his days of being a public works director, you might be going through, you know, a couple of sets per season, if not 1 set per storm. We're doing 1 set per 2 to 3 seasons.
Right.
So, you know, it's like 25 to 1, you know,
Yeah.
I mean.
And not only that,
has to do with how often you're treating your roads, how often the plows are down. We talked about the metal cutting blades with carbides, like in the upper northern parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, they're still waiting for the snow to build up before they do anything. So they kind of need that hefty cutting edge, where us down here in the South more, we're out pre-treating much more. So the need to plow as much is not there either. So.
Right. And the other thing that people don't understand too is there's less downtime on the equipment. Like if you're to replace one blade, you might be 45 minutes.
Right.
So if you're 45 minutes times 25 versus 45 minutes times 1, you don't have as much downtime. You don't have
not only that, you're talking about the capital investment between 2.5 times, 3 times on a blade. But when you look at the cost of the roadway that you're saving as well, I mean, it's a huge cost savings. I mean, the cost of the road is a heck of a lot more than the cost of a blade.
And if you're getting more snow off the pavement, there's less salt you're putting down. There's another expense, a material expense. Salt's not getting any cheaper. Like there's a multitude of benefits to having just one little piece of technology. And you know what? I'm not saying that you need to convert the whole fleet. We've spent 6 years converting the fleet. We're not doing it all at once.
Yeah. Right.
I can do 2 blades this season. I can do 4 blades this season. You need to just start transitioning, and you just pick away at it. I'm not saying you just all of a sudden turn the light switch on and say, okay, we're just going all composites. And that's where I always talk to people about this when we're looking at programs. It's no different than what you guys do. You got to have a look ahead. You got to look ahead 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and you got to say, okay, what can I afford to do this year, this year, this year, this year? You can't just start doing liquids, right away. You got to build up to the program. It's the same thing with the composite plow blades, any technology. You can't just dive in and assume that you're going to absorb all the expenses in one season.
Mark, I was going to say on that note, you mentioned in terms of moving into the program and liquids and that, and you've done a lot, obviously, currently and in your position and within Lexington. Can you talk about kind of how you've transitioned and started to use more on the liquids and kind of some of the new technology and development and stuff that you guys have been doing?
Yeah. So we started using liquids. First season we started was basically 10 years ago. It was the 11-12 season. And that season, I think we put out 25,000 gallons of straight salt brine. Immediately after that, we debriefed. We looked and decided to try to figure out exactly what was going to be more beneficial to us. Attended the APWA Snow and Ice Show, and it was like, okay, well, we need a little bit more. And again, I can't emphasize enough education and just informing staff of where you want the program to go, but then actually showing them and teaching them what the benefits are, what we have to look for, and the learning curve associated with it. So last year we were about 300,000 gallons of liquid, which I believe the only agency that's above us right now is DOT, and they're like at 1 million gallons. But we're 300,000 gallons with 260 lane miles, so it's a pretty high number. For us though, we started with just salt brine. We transitioned into using an organic that had a mag chloride. Then we transitioned into salt brine with an organic, and that's where we've stayed for quite a while. There's a lot of stuff out there. We realized in the temperate climate that we are in, we don't necessarily need another chloride. We don't need a mag, and we don't need a calcium if we have enough organic with the salt brine, because the mag and the calcium are both great products for when they're needed. They offer a great burn, and they do really, really well with that. But for us, we are heavily invested in salt brine with the organic. And the reason being is because we have the ability to exert an immense amount of liquid onto the salt at any time. We invested heavily in some salt spreader technology where it's 70% solid, 30% liquid. So that's where we are. And saturating the salt gives us great performance, and it's without it's without any additional chlorides. The challenge that we're having right now with some of the products, there's huge supply chain issues, there's crazy transportation issues. It's like the industry and just the United States. I got a lot of, like I said, the friends from APW Winter Maintenance Subcommittee. We're all experiencing major issues with transportation in deliveries. And that's because nobody's driving trucks anymore. We're paying a lot of money for transportation. And that's, so our product, our organics coming from the Midwest. And that's where it was expensive when we first started using it 5 years ago. And now it's just got more expensive. There are definitely, there's some new technology out there where there are people that are looking at more regional solutions with more local products. Like our stuff is that we're using right now. It's got corn, soybean, and sugar beet derivatives. And it's a combination of those. I don't know what the special recipe is. And that stuff works great, but there's some really good emerging technologies out there that's looking at grape pumice from grape manufacture, grape pressing, apple pumice, all of that stuff that's out there. It's the sugars that are the enhancer. And the reason why I say they're the enhancer is, again, it goes back to keeping the salt crystals on the road, so you don't have to put as many salt crystals out there every time. So that organic acts like a glue, and that keeps the salt crystals. So no one's driving down the road and there's a plume of salt dust everywhere. Like, you won't have that in Lexington because we spray 10% organic on everything that goes onto the pavement. All that salt brine's got 10% organic, holds the salt crystals. On top of that, the benefit of salt brine, and there are some people that are out there that are saying salt brine is what's killing everything right now. It's a salt brine, it's a salt brine. Well, okay. If you're using road salt, you're using salt brine, because as soon as road salt goes into solution, it turns into salt brine. Well, as soon as you put road salt on snow, it makes salt brine. So everybody's using salt brine. So you can't say salt brine is what's killing everything. It's the over application that is really hurting everything. Salt brine by nature is 23.3% salt and 76.7% water. The equivalent of 50 gallons per mile of salt brine is about 110 pounds of rock salt per lane mile. So Artie knows this because he was a director for long enough. Imagine being able to put down 110 pounds per mile all day long.
Pretty nice.
Standards are somewhere in the 200s. So you're automatically doing 50% less road salt than what industry standard is if you have the ability to put out road salt. Salt brine. So when you think about that, that's a huge benefit. And I know that there's a lot of people that are saying, well, salt brine killing the road, is it killing the roads? Well, too much of anything is bad for you. Like I always say this, everything in moderation. So I can say that, like, we do a really good job here keeping the roads in good shape, but since we've been running heavy with salt brine, we have not seen a decrease in our performance. And I know that there's a couple of people that I'm looking at right now who know a lot more about the pavement condition index than I do right now. I mean, wouldn't you say, Conrad, that we're looking in pretty good shape and we're consistently improving? And
Yep.
you can see how we've been ramping up over the past 5 years with salt brine, but we haven't seen a PCI go down, have we?
No. So on that note, I have so many more questions about this. So we're going to break this into 2 parts. So with that, I hope you guys join us for part 2. We're going to talk more about the science behind it, and also how the salt and the winter industry is impacting the environment overall. So with that, we'll see you next time on New England Road Talk.
Thank you.